Welcome everybody. I'm Irene Pasternack, teaching Feldenkrais with Northwest Parkinson's. We're going to continue our series on hands and shoulders because so much of what we do in the world, we do through our hands. And this is really fundamental, I think, for comfort in the world. I see a knot rubbing her thumb. We each have different places that are our spots that bug us with hands and shoulders. So let's do a few movements just to see where you are at the beginning of the class. So put your hand as if you had it on your mouse on your computer. And move the mouse around. Just feel what it's like to move it. Where do you feel the effort in your body? And then try some little fine motions like you were using your mouse as a drawing tool. Did that make it feel harder or easier to do a small motion? It's interesting. Sometimes it's easier to do the big than the small. Okay. And go ahead and stand up for a moment. And go for a little walk around your space. And as you're walking around your space, notice what your arms are doing. Which arm swings more than the other? And when it swings, does it go more in front of you or more behind you? And how about the other arm? When it swings, does it go more in front of you or more behind you? Or does it not swing? And what do your shoulder blades do when you walk? Do they move at all? Al, do you have a question? You're muted, Al, so I can't hear you.
My son gets a lot of credit. He says, get your hands out of your pocket.
Yeah, I didn't even ask if anybody had their hands in their pockets. Let everybody go for a little walk with your hands in your pockets. See what it's like to walk with your hands in your pockets.
She said you can just do it at the desk.
Okay. Stand up.
And then take your hands out of your pockets.
Big step forward on, keep walking forward.
It's actually a fun, Al, a fun hack you can do with your body to walk with your hands in your pockets for a minute. And then when you take them out, your arms usually swing better. It's after being restricted, then they move.
And the balance is better.
Yeah. Yeah, the balance definitely is different when your arms are swinging.
It's fine, just because it's space.
All right, so come on and have a seat. Welcome, Ron. I'm glad to have you in class today.
Hi, good morning.
And Kadeem, welcome to being here too. So with anything with Feldenkrais, when I ask you to do things, some things are going to be easy and some things are not. Do what you can do. Do it small and stay comfortable. It's more important the sensation of what you're doing than the actual movements that you're doing. So there's no, you have to move a certain way in order to make a lesson work. So just a reminder for everybody, and as you get started, that we're trying to get good at doing things the easy way. So we got to practice doing them the easy way. So today's going to be another lying down lesson. So you're going to want to find a place you can lie down on the floor or on a bed where you can be flat. So take a moment and get to that space. It's nice if you can adjust your screen so that I can see you when you're on the floor.
On the floor, Ron.
Do I lay down parallel to you or perpendicular to you?
Either way works, just so I can see. Mostly I want to be able to see your torso.
Okay.
And if lying down isn't possible, I can give instructions that you can do in the chair. It's just if you can lie down and get to a lying down, it's this lesson is going to be an easier one to do that way.
For us, it's probably going to be easier to just do it on the chair. So if you can give us some pointers there, please.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Get on the floor again.
Yeah, I get to sleep.
This is
No snoring allowed.
all over, is it?
Oh,
I'm going to mute everybody and just
not unless you touch it.
unmute yourself if you want to talk. So for many of you on the floor, you're going to want something under your head. So have something, a pillow or a book or a folded up shirt or something that can go under. Okay, and on the floor, please lie on your back if you're on the floor. And I see all sorts of useful things, rollers for under the knees some people have, or you can bend your knees and keep your feet standing. If you're sitting in a chair, sit toward the front of your chair. So there's a little space behind you on the chair. And okay, this is good. I can see at least some people on the floor, and that is helpful. All right, so if you are lying on the floor, take a moment to notice where is there pressure underneath you. If you're sitting in a chair, notice if your weight is even on your two sit bones, or if there's more weight on one side or the other. If you're lying down, in both positions, close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you had a pencil inside your brain somehow, and you could draw a line up and down your spine. Or you could run a fingertip along the back of your spine and feel the shape of it. Tracing the line of your spine from right at the base of your skull all the way down to your hips, where your spine goes into your pelvis. Just notice the shape of that line. For most of us, it's not a perfectly straight line. It has some little curves. There's curves forward, there's curves backward, there's maybe curves sideways. And very gently roll your head to one side and then to the other. So in sitting, you'll be turning your head one way, turning your head the other way. And where does your neck start when you roll your head, turn your head? Does it feel like it starts right where the top of your shoulders are? Or does it start deeper down in your torso? And does it feel like you're going, when you go to the right, does it feel like you're going uphill or downhill? So if you're sitting in a chair, do your eyes look down or do they look up when you turn your head to the right? And when you turn your head to the left, do they look right or, do they look up or down? And notice what you've chosen to do with your arms. So if you're lying on the ground, are your arms straight, resting on your palm or your back of your hand or your pinky? Are your hands on your belly, out to the side? We all choose a default position for where the hands are. If you're sitting, are they resting on your legs? Are they hanging down to the side? And for those of you who are sitting, bring your hands so they're just dangling down to your side. And if you're lying, rest them on the ground to your side. And notice what position is the default where you leave your hands. Are your palms facing your thighs? Are they facing the ground? Are they facing forward or backward? And what are your shoulder blades doing? On the ground, you might be able to feel one digging into the floor more than the other. In sitting, you have to use your imagination a little more or wiggle them around. Usually there's one shoulder blade that sticks out more than the other and one that's flatter. Okay. So choose one arm to start working with, and on the floor, turn it palm up. On the ground, sitting, turn it palm forward. And go back and forth between turning your palm up or forward and then back to its neutral. And feel, does your body do this in a smooth way or is it jerky like a clock going sort of tick-tock as it's going? And how much does your shoulder know that you're rolling your arm? You could put your fingers of the other hand right at the top of your arm, about an inch or two down from the surface. And as you roll your arm palm up, palm down, you may be able to sense the ball moving in the socket.
Excuse me, are we doing this way and up and down, or do you want to move?
From sitting, I'm going to stand up so I can show. So the palm is forward or to the side. So
Okay.
Not bending at the wrist, but rotating around the whole length of the arm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. And when that arm moves and you can feel your upper arm bone in the socket, it's pressing against your shoulder blade. See when you rotate your hand palm forward, if you can feel the shoulder blade move behind you. And then you could try leaving your shoulder blade still and rotating your arm and seeing what that does to the sensation of the movement. Does it feel better if your shoulder blade moves towards your spine or if your shoulder blade stays still? Okay. And where do you lead the way? Do you lead the way with your hand or do you lead the way with your shoulder? Try once leading it with your hand. So you rotate your wrist, you rotate your forearm, you rotate your upper arm, and then the shoulder blade moves. And rotate it. And then try moving the shoulder blade, and then the upper arm, and then the lower arm, and then the hand. It's really quite different depending on what order you do it. And we all have habits. You're either a hand-centric or a shoulder-centric. in how that movement happens. Now just rest for a moment and see if the two shoulders feel different one from the other after just this little exploration. And let's do a little with the other hand. So begin to rotate the other hand so the palm is forward if you're sitting or toward the ceiling if you're lying. And notice on this side, where do you lead the motion from? Your hand, your elbow, your upper arm, your shoulder blade. And experiment. Once start from the hand, once start from the shoulder, once start from the elbow where your elbow rotates and then it goes up and down your arm. What other ways could you experiment? You could imagine the back of your arm being the part that's turning. Or you could imagine the front of your arm. It's like if somebody had their hand on your arm, they could have their fingers on the front and ride the arm around, or they could have the fingers on the back and push the arm around. And rest for a moment. See if that shoulder has reduced the tension in it. It's always amazing how just a little bit of attention to the movement, a little bit of play, and some of the default tension that we carry around comes out of it. Okay. Now choose a shoulder, and with that shoulder, bring it forward a little bit. So in sitting, it comes forward. In lying, it comes up toward the ceiling. Just a little bit of forward motion with the shoulder. And notice, does it go more toward the opposite hip when it comes forward? Does it go up headward? Like if your shoulder kept going forward, what's the path that it would take? And notice if your head wants to move when you move your shoulder forward. Does it want to roll sideways, turn? If you're sitting, do you want to look at it when it comes forward, or do you want to look the other way? If you're lying, do you want to look at it or look the other way? Is it smooth as it makes this movement, or is it ka-chunk, ka-chunk? And how much of the rest of you comes along when you move your shoulder forward? And are you holding it ready all the time to go forward? So notice when you actually let it go backwards. So it comes forward and then you really let it go back. And forward and let it go back. All right, try that on the other side. And notice first, where does it go? Does it go straight toward the ceiling or straight toward the floor? And Kareem, as you're helping Ron with these movements, do it more with a sense of curiosity. Of going, Ron, I wonder where your shoulder goes. Not trying to make it go to a certain place, but just the experimentation with what is. Does that make sense? It's really just a very gentle touch to go. If you put a little bit of pressure behind Ron's shoulder, where does it go? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Ron, your job is to just sense, when my shoulder moves a little, does my head move? Just paying a little bit of attention there. Okay, good. And notice on this side, when you after you move it forward, do you actually settle and let it move back? That moving and then going, I'm not moving. All right. So now for this next little bit, first I'm going to talk to the people on the floor. Bend your knees and put your feet standing. And tilt your knees to one side, just a little bit, and bring them back. Now in a chair, you can tilt your knees to one side as well. And just go to one side for a while. You tilt your knees to one side. And what do you have to do to bring them back to neutral? You do something with your bottom. If you're on a chair, you can push one sit bone into the ground and that brings the knees back. If you're on the ground, your bottom can be like a tire to bring your knees back. Sense what happens in your feet as you tilt your knees to this one side. And notice how high up in your body do you feel this? What's happening in your ribs? What's happening behind your shoulder blades? See if you can sense that tilting your knees can go all the way up behind your shoulders. Does one side of your ribs, when you do this, go closer to the ground, or in sitting, one side of your ribs comes forward and one side goes backwards as you tilt your knees? And then rest for a moment in a symmetric position. Exhale, wait until you have to inhale, and then when you inhale, feel which side do you breathe easier in. And then begin to tilt your knees the other way. See if this side is easier or harder than the other way to tilt your knees. Sense what your ribs do, which ribs come forward, which ribs press backward when you tilt your knees. Doesn't have to be a big movement with the knees. Just big enough that you feel like you're in control to bring them back to the middle. Sensing what happens to the line of your spine when you tilt your knees. Is there a new place where it curves? And begin to notice what your head is doing. Is your head going the same way your knees are, or is it going opposite? Experiment. Sometimes let your head go with your knees, and then sometimes let your head go opposite your knees. And feel how those two movements ask something different between your shoulder blades. When your head goes with your knees, your shoulders stay a little flatter. And when your head goes opposite, you might feel the beginning of an arch, of a lifting between the shoulder blades. Okay, pause for a moment. And now alternate. Take your knees one way and your head the other. And go back and forth, your knees going right to left with your head going opposite. And do your shoulders go with your head or do they go with your knees? Deliberately take your shoulders with your head so the shoulders and head go one way while the knees go the opposite. And when you're helping there, just notice what happens to your head, Ron. When your shoulders move, does your head go with it? And then if you can, take your head and look the other way. All right, and rest for a moment. Now we're going to get our arms involved for a moment. So with your arms long by your sides, if you're in the chair, have them hanging down. If you're lying on the ground, put your palms facing your thighs. If you're lying down, you might want to keep your knees bent. It's probably more comfortable than lengthening, although if you have a roller, that's fine too. Now roll one palm one way and the other. So if you're lying down, one palm down, one palm up. If you're sitting, one palm forward, one palm backward. And then reverse them. So one palm goes forward and one backward. And see if your head just naturally wants to go with one side or the other. And then deliberately, with your head, look to the side that your palm is going forward. So that there's this little head going left and right. And feel for what happens in your shoulders. When one shoulder blade goes closer to your spine, and let that go. Then we're going to do the same motion again with the hands. So one palm forward, one palm backward, one up, one down. Begin to reverse both hands at the same time. Takes a moment to coordinate. So if you're taking your hands one forward, one backward, but leave them down by your side. I'm just showing you up above. And this time, take your hands and look at the hand that is palm down or palm backward. Might feel a little strange. Go slow, be gentle with yourself. Another way of thinking about this, you're probably looking at the shoulder that comes forward. Because your shoulder probably comes forward as your hand goes backward. And then go back to looking at the hand that's palmed forward. And that's usually the shoulder that's going backward. We're trying to coordinate and differentiate the head and the shoulders and the arms. Rest for a moment. And just with one arm hanging, roll it palm forward or palm up and see if your shoulder blade is more responsive to that motion now than it was before. Having our shoulder blades and hands connected like this is the most important thing for our hands to be able to be relaxed. So you and try the other hand, roll your palm and sense the shoulder blades. Okay. Now, if you're on the ground, bend both knees and cross your right leg over your left. If you're sitting and you can cross your knees safely and comfortably, cross your right over your left. If not, cross at your ankles. And now use the weight of your right leg to pull your legs to the right a little bit. So the weight of your right leg helps you tip your knees if you're lying down, and it takes your knees to the right if you're sitting in the chair. And do that a couple times. So you leave your leg crossed and you take the knees further and then come back.
Is it right over left right now?
Right over left.
Okay.
And then the knees go to the right. And feel for, does that get in between your shoulder blades at all? Does it make you want to push your belly out or pull your belly in? And then rest as much as you can with your knees still tilted right. So tilt your knees to the right. And while you're tilted to the right, lift your left shoulder blade. And see if that lets you take your knees a little further to the right. Okay. Let that go. Cross the other way, so left over right. Take your knees to the left now, with the left over the right. Do that a few times just to feel how you can do and undo that motion. And then leave your legs to the left and take your right shoulder forward. And see if when you take your right shoulder forward, that lets your legs go left a little bit more. There's some connection in there. Good. Let that go. Then both hands long by your side. And tilt your knees to one side. Let's everybody tilt to the right. And then when you tilt your legs to the right, turn your right hand palm up and your left hand palm down. And then bring your knees to the left and switch your hands. So every time your knees go from one side to the other, you do the opposite with the hands. Takes a minute to coordinate that, to get the hands and the feet.
Are the legs still crossed or no longer?
No, the legs are not crossed, but they're tipping left and right.
Okay.
So in sitting, it means both knees go to the left or to the right.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And check in with your hands. Sometimes when we start to do these knees and hands things, the hands get uncoordinated. So go a little slower so you can make sure one hand is palm down and one is palm up, and that they switch as the knees go to the other side. Yep. Now, is your head moving when you do this? Does your head go with your knees? Actually, before we do the head, pause for a sec. Take your knees to the right. Turn your left hand palm up and your right hand palm down. And then bring your knees to the left and switch your hands. So now there's a sensation that the knees are going opposite the shoulders. When your knees go left, your right shoulder presses into the ground so your hand can roll. When your knees go right, your left shoulder presses back and your left hand is palm up. So take your knees opposite your hands. Okay. And now notice what your head is doing. Is your head going with your hands or with your knees? For most people, it usually goes with our hands first. So let's all deliberately try taking your head the same direction as your knees and then taking your hands opposite. And if you're like most people, you'll try this once or twice and get all tangled and you have to reset and start over. So you reset by taking your knees one way, your hands the opposite. So you feel the shoulder pushing down on the opposite side. And then roll your head to look toward your knees. And then very slowly switch all three. So your head looks at your knees. And when you lose it and you find your head's back going with your hands, stop. Tilt your knees one way. Tilt the arms the other way. Then turn your head and try it again. And let that go. Now, just with your shoulders, press one down and lift one up. Or sitting, press one forward, one backward. And take your head with your shoulders. Your head looks toward the shoulder that's pressing down or going backwards. Or your head looks at the shoulder that's coming forward. Or your head stays still and your shoulders move. So lying down, that's pressing one shoulder then the other against the ground, but leaving your head in the middle. That's really more what we do when we're walking, is the head stays still while the shoulders move. All right, and then just resting in the position you're in, notice the sensation of your shoulder blades on the ground if you're on the ground, how you're sitting on your sit bones if you're in a chair. Roll one arm, palm up, palm down, palm forward or back if you're sitting. See if it's gotten a little more easy, comfortable to roll the arms. Lying down or in either position, you could roll both arms palm forward, both arms palm down, and just feel what happens in your back. We're really interested in what's happening between the shoulder blades. Okay, and lying down, roll to your side and come up to sitting. We're eventually going to go to standing. So if you're in a chair, you could stand up. Take your time, especially if you get dizzy when you change positions, and come up to standing. And just in standing, feel if your shoulders are in a little different position on your body than they were before. Perhaps a little bit more behind where they were. And do a little experiment. Roll your shoulders forward. And then imagine you are holding your mouse and move your mouse and see what it feels like to move a mouse when your shoulders are rolled forward. And then bring your shoulder blades together behind you and move your mouse. And for a moment, really push your shoulder blades hard together behind you and feel how that makes it equally hard to move your mouse as when your shoulders were rounded. And then find a place that isn't ridiculously far backward or ridiculously far forward, that's in between the shoulder blades behind and the shoulder blades pulled wide. And then feel a place where you could move your mouse or you could stir a big pot of something by letting your hips and your body do the motion. Yeah. And then take your shoulder forward again on your dominant arm and just play with your fingers a little and see what the fingers feel like when the shoulder is forward, okay? And then relax that shoulder back into the position after the lesson and move your fingers and see if it's a little more comfortable to just move the fingers. It's like the most important thing we can do for hand comfort is this getting the shoulder blade to be free. So do a little conducting, whatever piece of music you're in mind to conduct, and let your weight transfer from foot to foot as you do that. See how that helps you if you're washing a window, say. You could imagine washing the window. And the sensations in the shoulder blade as you do that. Wash with the other hand a little bit. Okay, and then go for a little walk. And as you walk, pay attention to your arms. See if there's something different in the arm swing now than at the beginning of the lesson. And in particular, with your right arm, does your right arm swing in a straight line, or does it wrap around your body a little bit as it swings? And experiment with letting it wrap around your body. You could just stand still for a moment and wrap your right arm so that it swings. Your palm at the front faces your belly, and at the back it faces your bottom. And then try it with your left hand, swinging it and letting the arm be long. It doesn't need to bend at the elbow to do this. Or you could, not so much thinking about your arm, if you do that shoulder motion that we were playing with in the class, of one shoulder forward and one back, your arms just naturally swing around you. And with Parkinson's, the arms often stop swinging as you move, and it's because the shoulders stop doing this rotation around your middle. So deliberately fix your eyes on a point and just swing your shoulders, one forward, one backward. You can do this sitting or standing. And now let your arms be as loose as they could be. So if your torso, you were like a coat hanger and there's two belts hanging down, they would whap yourself as you twisted your shoulders. They kind of whap you on your bottom behind and on your legs in front. Yeah. That little motion will do wonders for both your balance and your hand comfort. And now go for a little walk again and see if you can find that motion in your walk where the shoulders swing like that. If you're going out for a walk, you're going to go walk outside, you're walking in the grocery store, you're walking down the hall because you have to go pee. If you think about your shoulders moving like that and the shoulder blades moving toward your spine, there's a little more stability in your walk. All right, and then come have a seat. And I'm just curious if your inner sensation of the relationship between your arm and your shoulder blade is getting clearer, like your map is changing of, my shoulder blades and my arms are connected. It's a funny thing. It's that old song of the knee bone's connected to the whatever, the foot bone's connected to the knee bone, or I don't remember the words of that song. But the arm bone's connected to the shoulder blade, and the shoulder blade is limited in its movement by what you do with the ribs underneath it. So we're working that connection to try to keep those as mobile as can be. Any comments, questions, observations of differences in this lesson?
Irene, I noticed the relationship between the shoulder blade and the ability to turn the neck. This was the epiphany of this lesson, because I constantly have a problem to turn the head to the left. It's stuck. It's like a cogwheel. I can't do it. And when we were lying on the floor, and you said to bring the, like to
bring the shoulder up, yeah?
To bring the shoulder up and to spreaden, to widen it's widening the shoulder blade. Then I noticed that when the shoulder is forward, it is much easier to turn the head versus if the shoulder is back and I try to. Now I don't feel it, but on the floor it was very clear.
So when I think the reason you're not feeling it being hard now when you take your shoulder back is you're turning your sternum as well. So everybody, as you take your head to look over your shoulder, if your sternum turns, you can see further, but your chin still stays in front of your shoulder. Whereas if your shoulder comes forward, there's more relative motion between your head and your shoulders. They're both valid movements. And by doing this lesson and experimenting with all the possibilities, you can do either one comfortably. Yeah. But that there is a relationship between the shoulder and turning your head, for sure. Anyone else?
It was very relaxing lesson.
I like this particular lesson, the arms going opposite. It's something if you're doing something in the morning to get yourself unstiff before you get out of bed and you're lying and tilting your knees from side to side, adding in the arms rotating will also help in your balance. I know several of you are using things to avoid that, but first get out of bed and it's hard to balance. It's a piece I would add into it. Okay, we're going to continue probably at least one more, maybe two more hand ones. Next time will be more about the fine-tuning motions of the hands. It's just the fine-tuning never works right until the shoulders get to be part of the action.
Would you suggest some of these movements before even getting out of bed, like you just said?
Yes.
Get them going.
Yes.
And
very, Kareem, how about if you and Ron stay on afterwards? Because
okay.
then I can guide you. It's different when you're helping somebody else do the movement than when you're doing the movement on your own. And I want to talk through some of those details with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Rich. Oops, you're still muted.
No, I'll just fix it. Can you hear me now?
No, can you either come a little closer to your computer? Thank you.
There we go. I just want to ask about the arm movement, where we swing around from kind of.
Yeah.
The arms are supposed to swing around instead of go straight back and forth, right?
If you hold your shoulders very rigid, like you can kind of hold your breath and clamp your shoulders, then the arms strength go forward and back. But if the shoulders do a little bit of this wrapping around, so one shoulder forward, one backward, then the
Yeah,
arms
that's-
just naturally wrap around you a little bit.
Excuse me.
Sometimes it's easier for us to talk to our hands than it is to talk to our shoulders. So if you tell your hands wrap around,
Mhm.
your shoulders will start moving more.
And that's what you're shooting for.
Yeah, it's just all of these little tricks really within Feldenkrais are ways to, in modern vernacular, hack your body to get it to do what works better for balance. Yeah, and playing with the shoulders and the hands to do that sense of wrapping around yourself helps remind your torso, oh yeah, my spine needs to be able to, like, if it to rotate around itself.
Yeah. Thanks.
And the biggest challenge in our body when they do that mapping of the where our sensory nerves come up into ourselves, our torso has the smallest mapping of any part of us. We have big hands, big face, big feet, big genitals, and a tiny little torso because we just don't have as much communication there. And then you add Parkinson's to that, which cuts out some of the communication, and the torso becomes a black box. It starts getting rigid. And then the peripherals, the arms and the legs don't work as well. And so we have to be building the map of the torso so it takes up a little bit more space in your brain, that you're aware of, oh, I have shoulder blades and what do they do? And oh, I have a spine and a space between my shoulder blades and what does that do? And that helps build your skill at using your torso to keep your balance.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, then we are done for today. I'll see you all next Tuesday, and Ron and Kareem are going to stay on for a couple of minutes. Oh, Marilyn, you have a question, or are you saying goodbye?
I just want to say that was an excellent.
No, I have a question. My therapist is really impressed with what I'm bringing in from this class. And I wondered if she could maybe go to the archives and work through them.
Absolutely. They're available on
She's
YouTube.
working when it's on. Platform.
Yeah, YouTube, all
Okay,
of the
she
lessons.
doesn't have to have Parkinson's to access it.
You don't have to have Parkinson's to access it. They're on YouTube. You just search for Northwest Parkinson's Foundation Feldenkrais, and there's a playlist with all the lessons. So she can do that at her own convenience. Yeah.
And are they
Thank
dated
you.
also?
You're welcome.
Are they indexed by date or by subject?
By subject.
Okay.
And then I also have them on my website. My website is movebeyondlimits.com. And I have a page about Parkinson's, and I have them indexed a little bit more in more depth there. So you can link to them from there.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
That was a great class.